The Jaguar F-Pace made its debut appearance in July 2015 when a production prototype vehicle led the Team Sky cycling team out at an event in the Netherlands. European and North American buyers didn't have to wait much longer to get the car on their driveways, with the first deliveries made in spring 2016 after the official launch of the vehicle at the Frankfurt Motor Show in September of 2015. Used buyers should note, this is the earliest models they will see for sale. Those in Asia and Australia and New Zealand either received their first customer cars in summer or winter of 2016, depending on the season in the local market. 2017 was a big year for the F-Pace. Not only did it sell just shy of 20,000 units in the USA and over 30,000 units in Europe, but it was the recipient of World Car of the Year and World Car Best Design of the Year. A huge achievement from a brand that had been struggling to attract buyers in 2014 and 2015 as their lineup was shifting focus. The F-Pace was a pivotal moment, along with several other additions to the Jaguar lineup, not only increasing JLR group sales by 20% globally, but Jaguar as a brand was 77% up in sales over the previous fiscal year. On the used market, you will get the greatest selection of vehicles in 2017, as this was the best-selling year in most markets, although 2016 was also a hot sales year, even though the vehicle was not sold for several months of it. You'll find a good choice on the used market from 2017 to 2021, as these were top-selling years, but sales began to decrease year on year from 2021, although 2024 may reverse this trend. While the F-Pace is firmly in the SUV sector, the platform beneath it is shared with the Jaguar XE and Jaguar XF, giving the driver a feel closer associated with the car on the road. Its sister car, the Range Rover Velar, was built alongside it in Solihull, UK. A buyer's guide for that car is already on the channel that you may want to check out next for comparison. For those intrigued by the platform share with regular cars in Jaguar's lineup, you'll be interested to know that while the double wishbone suspension on the front of the car is shared with the XF and XE, giving the car the initial turn-in and response of the sedan models, the rear subframe is completely different and was much more costly to produce, as it handles the dual stress of getting a dynamic drive with a higher ride height while maximising comfort and enabling more flexibility to the suspension to make the car have more off-road capability. Most used buyers will find an 8-speed ZF gearbox similar to other Jaguar and Land Rover models in the F-Pace, although it should be noticed that a 6-speed ZF was also initially used in entry diesel models that most markets outside of Europe will not have received. For those wanting the ultimate F-Pace, the SVR has stood out from the competition from the beginning. Just as other prestige brands were beginning to look at smaller, turbocharged engines and hybrid assistance, the 5-litre Supercharged SVR stormed onto the market, where it has remained ever since. In 2023, a 1988 edition was added for those that wanted something a bit special, featuring amethyst paintwork and a transmission mapping from the Jaguar Project 8 cars that share the 5-litre. Another big advantage for those that consider themselves both car and driving enthusiasts is the rear bias to the all-wheel drive system. Again, differentiating it from other manufacturers that dialing every ounce of grip to reduce the launch times for head-to-head drag racing videos on popular YouTube videos, but forget that in doing so, they have dialed out the very driving character that could take someone from a sports car to family SUV because their children or friends have begun to loathe them for the token back seats that they were being offered, making a 4-door mandatory. The F-Pace SVR was always a halo model though, and new car buyers may have been tempted into the showroom by it, but the 2-litre diesel and petrol models took a large chunk of sales, with the 3-litre petrol a middle ground between the bonkers SVR and the more tame company car park friendly diesel. Onto safety, and Euro NCAP awarded a full 5 stars back in 2017. That safety score is now officially expired as the testing regime has been changed. North American IIHS were not given a car for testing, and Australian and New Zealand ANCAP have expired their rating, noting the car is off sale as of December 2023. Next up are the common faults, and a reminder that if you're enjoying the video, then consider subscribing for more, as over 98% of all viewers are unsubscribed, meaning that you won't get suggested our newer guides in the future. There are over 100 guides on the channel, along with advice and reviews, and you never know what car you might be considering next. A rather embarrassing one for Jaguar starts our list, with very early 2016 models fitted with the incorrect length drive shafts. Not all models were affected, but it's worth asking your local specialist to check on the car's next service if you do get one of the early production cars, as they have been known to separate from the vehicle eventually without warning. The rise and twist gear selector can form a fault that stops it rising or falling, immobilising the car. The repair is well understood and not particularly costly, but recovery costs for those without breakdown cover could be very costly if you're off into the woods or a great distance from your local specialist. Fortunately, it will usually give a sign of wearing before failure, either with a slow rise or stiff action, and as this mechanism is fitted across the JLR group, problems are not as common as they appear, although you will find plenty of reports online. 2016 model year cars could suffer with faults from the rear spring isolators, but these appear to be resolved for 2017 model years. Specialists will generally just replace these today, as the newer part solves most issues that people experience. Software glitches and crashes could happen, although from 2020 the number of reports reduces, and even at its highest, most owners didn't need more than 1 or 2 trips to the dealer to resolve it. If the air conditioning either won't blow cold air or is cold on only the driver's or passenger's vents, then a failure of the DPS valve is the likely culprit. Fortunately, this is fairly well known, and a repair is possible. A common complaint from new owners were features that they believe were included as standard but are actually options. When looking at a used car, check the F-Pace that you are looking at really does have the optional extras a seller is claiming. Listen out for any rattles from the windows. Some F-Pace models can have a very small gap between the glass and the locator on the door, causing a rattle when in motion. There are repairs and clever ways that owners have fixed this, but listen out on a test drive if you want to avoid it entirely. Interestingly, despite what the comments section of YouTube usually says for Jaguar and Land Rover models whenever I create a guide, the F-Pace is generally a strong performer for reliability. My uncle has one and he's owned for 3 years since his Jaguar XE was stolen. Since then, aside from the annual service, he's only needed a new set of tyres. So it's worth being aware of the areas to check, but it may not be down to your selection of engine rather than the F-Pace chassis that has the most areas to check. We'll come on to the engine shortly, but first up are the recalls and a reminder to check out the Miles Driven book, as the sales from that fund the research for these videos. I wrote it myself and it should give you a few hours of enjoyment when you've watched all the YouTube videos that you can manage. Model years of 2016 to 2018 equipped with a 2-litre petrol were recalled in 2019 under code H185 due to carbon dioxide emissions reading higher than certified. A software update resolved the issue. Recall code H201 was announced in 2019 for Takata airbags that had been fitted to 2017 model year vehicles. The worldwide recall of Takata airbags was caused by impellers degrading and becoming dangerous in the event of an airbag deployment. In January 2018, a recall was made for virtual instrument displays, as they could go blank without warning on 2016 or 2018 models. Affected chassis owners were contacted for a software update. Several smaller recalls were made in some markets for seatbelt buckles and fuel spillages due to faulty return hoses. These affected a very small number of vehicles overall. Moving on to the engines, and there are 3 diesels and 4 petrol engines. The smallest is also paired with the plug-in hybrid. We'll start with the diesels. The 2-litre Ingenium engine was offered in 4 power variants: 161, 176, 201 and 237 brake horsepower. The 8-speed is paired with the highest power model, only in most markets, until the mild hybrid 201 brake horsepower also adds the 8-speed. Fuel economy is officially rated at 42.2 miles per gallon or 6.54 litres per 100 kilometres. The diesel Ingenium hasn't gained the best reputation, especially from earlier iterations of the motor that suffered from timing chain failures. This was fitted to 2017 to 2019 models. However, this latest iteration is better, and so from 2019, many complaints of the issues disappear as the timing chain design was re-engineered. Turbochargers have become the most likely area to suffer a failure in place of the timing chain. Your best chance of avoiding these issues is finding a car with a full service history, but crucially serviced with shortened oil services early on. However, at least done on time and with the correct oil will help. On the plus side, turbo failures usually happen early on in a car's life, so if buying a 4-year or older example, you may find one with a turbo already replaced, and you'll be past the point where most turbos have already failed. The larger 3-litre diesel is initially a V6 with 296 brake horsepower and an average of 35.9 miles per gallon or 7.87 litres per 100 kilometres. This engine became notorious in Land Rover for snapping crankshafts, as the engine is a modified and refined version of the much earlier 2.7 TD V6 from over a decade before. However, although this engine is shared with Land Rover, Jaguar cars fitted with the 3-litre V6 have fewer reports of this problem. The F-Pace was initially praised by motoring journalists with this engine as the hot pick due to its power, efficiency and minimal cabin intrusion. Looking over the reports of crankshaft failures on the F-Pace isn't anywhere near as problematic as the Range Rover and Range Rover Sport in 2013 to 2018. JLR did revise the unit, and it looks like the F-Pace benefited from lessons learned on those earlier Range Rover models. It would be good to get feedback from the 3-litre V6 diesel owners, as I came across several people questioning whether they could really trust buying this engine used. The 3-litre V6 gave way for the 3-litre inline-six diesel engine. Power remained the same, but fuel efficiency increased slightly to 38.2 miles per gallon, or 7.39 litres per 100 kilometres. These are mild hybrid engines and are only just coming out of warranty, but so far only rare warranty-related issues have been reported, none of which are common enough to report on the F-Pace. Buyers seem content with the inline-six. Moving on to the petrols, and the range begins with a 2-litre Ingenium engine producing 247 brake horsepower and 29.1 miles per gallon, or 9.71 litres per 100 kilometres. So far this is again a reliable engine. The people you will find warning against this engine generally have it confused with the earlier diesel, as they are both called 2-litre turbo Ingenium. But aside from rare issues and a few early models needing turbochargers under warranty, these are again a good choice for overall power, efficiency and reliability. You won't have the torque of the larger diesel, but on the road, the 8-speed gearbox shuffles quickly to make sure you're in the power band when needed, and so if you mean to make an overtake, the 2-litre petrol will get the job done. This engine is also paired with a hybrid system for the P400E model. The paired 105 kilowatt electric motor increases the combined power to 398 brake horsepower. Official fuel economy is unrealistic, but owners with access to home charging are polling at around 60 miles per gallon, or 4.71 litres per 100 kilometres as an average. So far, the hybrid system hasn't had any common failure points. The 3-litre V6 equipped with a supercharger starts the range with either 335 or 375 brake horsepower and 31.7 miles per gallon, or 8.91 litres per 100 kilometres, but please note this was recorded in the old NEDC cycle that is much less accurate than the other figures quoted so far. Overall, there were very little complaints for the V6, but the supercharger pulley could fail. Listen for any chirping noises on startup. If this has been left for a long period of time, it could cause damage to the supercharger and, in a worst case scenario, the engine. Failed water pumps and coolant leaks seizing the engine parts or contaminating the engine were reported in early versions of this engine, but the F-Pace has avoided the majority of these failures and overall are considered reliable, if not a little thirsty. The V6 was replaced by an inline-six turbocharged petrol engine producing 395 brake horsepower with an official average of 28.5 miles per gallon, or 9.91 litres per 100 kilometres. The biggest problem this engine faced isn't mechanical, but simply its place in the lineup. With Europeans still having the diesel option with better fuel economy, and many markets getting the 2-litre petrol for better economy and the 5-litre V8 for power, the inline-six exists at a time when the 395 brake horsepower matches the much more efficient hybrid 2-litre that is far better on fuel, making it a cheaper car to own. The motor itself has been reliable, but if you want one you may have to be fairly relaxed about specification and colours due to its late introduction in the F-Pace lifespan and directly competing with the hybrid since it's been available for sale. The final and most powerful model is the 5-litre V8 supercharged engine with either 542 or 567 brake horsepower, branded SVR in every market checked. Official efficiency is 22.4 miles per gallon, or 12.61 litres per 100 kilometres. However, on a spirited drive, you'll be a fair way off that. The V8 has been around for quite some time since its introduction in 2019 to both the Jaguar and Range Rover models. In its lifespan, it has been revised, and by the time it arrived in the F-Pace, the problems associated with it were all but gone, in rare cases dealt with by warranty. Early iterations suffered from timing chain problems, but I couldn't find this problem on the F-Pace. JLR revised the engine in 2014 and seemed to deal with the timing chain problems permanently. Coolant pipes have leaked in rare cases, so look for any signs of any previous coolant leak. The piping runs under the supercharger, so it can be challenging to locate, but as mentioned, isn't very common. For our picks on a budget, the 2-litre petrol engine is reliable and powerful, but the 3-litre diesel will give the overall package and be a great mix of both. V6 diesels should be bought with a warranty covering crank failure to avoid a very expensive mess. For our higher budget, well, the newer hybrid optimises everything from power to efficiency and lower taxes for those taxed on emissions, but this is the miles driven, and so it has to be the SVR for the high budget pick. If you want to look at the competition, how about our guide on the Velar, Volvo XC60 or Porsche Macan? We've got guides on all of them on the channel to check out next. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as ever, all the best with your car search.